Hey everyone, Charles Johnson, lead trainer and technical engineer at Lynxspring, and I'm actually recording from AHR. I'm actually in my hotel room. I'm sorry for the audio. I normally would have my headphones, but for some reason I forgot them, and I was going to order some, but there were issues with that too. So I figured I would get this out right now. As a quick talking point. I might re-record this later with better audio quality, but for now, I want to go ahead and talk about the rest of customizing Workbench. The original video was going to be about editing the about.html, but unfortunately, in order to do that, you would need to re-encrypt the Workbench module where the about.html is. And so since I'm not ready to show you how to go through that process yet, I'm going to pivot and talk about modifying Workbench in a different way. So one, most of you will be familiar with, and two, the second one, maybe some of you are familiar with. I don't know how common it is. I know we definitely don't talk about it in the N4TCP. The first one actually talks about how we're going to add components to the system, and that's in the nodecomponents.bog. Now, we used to teach this in the N4TCP, but we recently removed it in the latest revisions of the class, just because of the fact that there's so much to cover. And it wasn't something that we felt was vital to learning. It's just kind of fun to know. And so here's a video to kind of talk about that. And the new widgets.bog are things that you want to add to your PX pages. So where to find the new components.bog? Well, I'm going to go to my file system, which is under my host. And under here, we're going to go to the syshome, which is just the general installation files of Niagara. And here, we're going to go to the defaults folder. And under the defaults folder, here we have the new components.bog and the new widgets.bog. Now you can see each of them have some stuff here. So if you were right click on a PX page, you would see these. And if you click on the components, the config space, or a wire sheet, like in another folder, you would certainly see these here. So why would you change any of these? Well, the first one for the new components.bog, say you have Boolean, numeric, and enum and string points with histories and alarms already set up, and they're configured in a way that you use in every single station. Well, there's no point in reinventing that wheel. Simply create them and then add them here to the new components.bog. So if I were to actually click on this, you can see that it has all the components here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just duplicate this separator. And what this separator is going to do is that this separator is going to allow me to add additional components, and it's going to be separated. So if we go to new here, you would see how this line here is actually a separator here. So that actually separates these here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Baja folder. The Baja folder, and click OK. And I'm going to add an unrestricted folder, which is different than a regular folder or an icon folder. The unrestricted folder also allows you the ability to add like devices and drivers, other things that you would not be able to allow to add in a regular folder at this point in time, like when you're creating like the new component.bog or a separate bog file, period. So if I add this unrestricted folder, and I'm going to name it my logic modules, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click on this folder that I just created. And here I may go over a bunch of the modules. This is, some of you have been following me on LinkedIn. You'll notice that I've created a bunch of different modules, or a bunch of different objects for my modules here. So if I go ahead and just kind of actually select all these right now, and I'll go ahead and drag them all here. And you see here, these are all also unrestricted folders. But now I'm going to go ahead and save by right-clicking and going to save on the new components.bog. So now if I actually were to go to, let's say, this history testing, I go to views, and I go to AX Wiresheet. Well, what I could do now is I can right click and select new, and you see here, there's a separator in my logic modules, and now I can actually add, like, let's say, if I want to add like a single phase KW calculator, I can put that here. Now the new widgets.bog would be things that I would want to add to my PX page. Now, one thing that is kind of important here is borders, right? Typically we'll add a border here, but we can't add a border on a regular label because it doesn't exist, which is why we normally would teach you to right-click these or highlight them and go to border and add border. Now, what that does, it actually adds a border pane to both of these, but it really is a pain, no pun intended, to get around these. So if I wanted to try to move these, I can't. It actually sees them as separate entities because each of them are encapsulated in the border pane. So in order to remove the border, you have to right-click on the border pane itself, go to border, and remove border. So what I like to do, and what I show my students, is if you want to have a border, then you're going to go to your Kit PX palette here. And what you're going to do is you're going to add a bound label. Well, Charles, a bound label contains a bound label binding. Well, it does, but it also contains a border. And so all I need to do is I just need to delete my bound label binding, but my border still gets to remain. So here, if I just keep solid, maybe that's the color that I want the entire time. And in the text, I'm just going to say text box. And that's the same size. Well, this is now effectively this zone temp. So this zone temp is a regular label. And this here is a bound label, but it effectively, for all intents and purposes, is a label. It just doesn't have the bound label binding, but it has a border. So obviously all bound labels have a border option. And so that just gives you a little extra thing here so you don't have to add border panes. Well, what I can do now is I can right-click on this and select copy. Now, what I don't recommend you doing is dragging the bound label up into the new widgets.bog and attempting to trying to delete that bound label binding or edit any properties with this here. The framework will complain and you actually can just freeze your workbench. Bad things can happen. So, under the new widgets.bog, I'm not going to save that there. I'm going to just duplicate the separator like I've done before. And now I'm going to right click and select paste. And instead of saying bound label, I'm going to say text box or label with border. And I'm going to hit save. Now I could add some more things here. I guess if you want to add a hyperlink button, you can do that. I'm not really a fan of hyperlinks either. And if I wanted to add maybe we'll just add, we'll just add those two for now. I'll go ahead and save on the new widgets.bog. So now if I go back to my PX here that I have, by the way, I'm actually going to show you how to use like Chart.js and Plotly to create a UX, but that's going to be in the UX UI stuff that I'm going to be talking about in another series. But now if I were to right click on my PX page, you can see now that I have a label with border and a hyperlink button. So now here's my text box, and then here is the hyperlink button that I have. So I really hope that you've learned something here today. I'm going to go ahead and save this here, and I hope to see you tomorrow in the Lynxspring booth 1481. I'm going to go ahead and record. I'm going to go ahead and push this out onto LinkedIn right now, and I hope you've had a great time and have a great night.